Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to Seed to Plate channel, and today's video is a little different. I've been really rocking these like education heavy videos lately, and I think I just want to do a little more of like a chit chat video, but not in like a weird way. I want to chat about like garden inspiration. So I have personally been struggling to find the motivation to start my seeds, so here's my seed starting trays. We're gonna start peppers. I have my handy dandy checklist to make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, and I'll go through the varieties that I am going to be sowing. And I'm gonna do another full video on my seed starting setup, just in case anyone's curious. I know this time of year, like your feeds are probably filled with seed starting, mistakes to avoid, like all this stuff. And I kind of feel like my audience has that pretty like honed in, that process. So I actually thought about this, the origins of the mukbang, which is like a total internet sensation. It's where like people eat on camera. I don't love that, but the whole point of that was to help people who were eating by themselves. So it was like, come sit down and eat with me and we can like, do this together. And so today I kind of want to do the same thing, but starting seeds, because the gardening community I think online is very strong because it's hard to find a gardening community in real life. So I think we all become good garden friends on the internet because it's a space where we can share our interests and our hobbies and bounce things off of each other. So yeah. So I'm going to be starting pepper seeds today. The supplies that I have are literally my seeds. I get real fancy. I use the end of a pencil to push the seed into the ground. And I have these little bamboo plant markers that I'm using this year because the plastic ones were just giving me trouble. So I have my bamboo plant markers, and then these seed trays are new to me this year. These are the ones from Epic Gardening, and they're super durable. I haven't had anything germinate yet, so I'm excited to kind of see how they perform, but I've heard nothing but really good things about them. So we're gonna start with, looks like most of these are, this first ones are sweet peppers. So we're gonna start with bell peppers. We're doing California Wonder, which I've never grown before, orange bell pepper, which has done really well for me, and then King of the North, which has also done well for me. Ironically, because I'm in a southern planting zone, King of the North are early producers, and so they actually do a really good job at producing a lot of peppers before the heat comes on, and then the peppers don't want to produce anymore. So that's what we're starting. I have been struggling lately with inspiration, and I think probably part of that is because I don't have a garden, which I feel like I keep saying that, but I don't really think I knew how prolifically that hit me until just like the last couple of months. At the same time, I have no regrets because I think not having my garden actually allowed me to focus on more what I wanted out of my career for a few months, which was good to kind of get honed in and focused on that part of my life. But it's been hard, and today is January 12th. Normally I am like super gung-ho to start seeds on January 1st. So I'm like a couple weeks behind, to be honest with you. And so I think it's a couple-fold issue. I don't really know where my plants are gonna go. I don't know what my garden's gonna look like, and it's kind of weird to be excited about something that's so unknown. And I think for some people the unknown is very exciting. I can confidently say I am not one of those people. I don't like the unknown. It scares the absolute garbage out of me. And yeah, I mean, is it exciting that I'm gonna get to build a new garden? Absolutely. But I, by nature, am a planner. I think that's the reason I can effectively have a corporate job and create content, because I am an aggressive planner. I make to-do lists, I plan my life. I mean, there's certain things I'm not very good at, like weirdly enough, I'm not very good at planning social things. Even though I love my friends and I love being social, for some reason, I don't plan social things. I always attend and I'm excited and I love being there. The planning part gets me. Also, this is a new seed company to me, So Right Seeds. They sent me these seeds as a gift for me to try them out, and yeah, so none of them have germinated yet. I also just starting seeds, so we'll see how they go. But so I've really had to like dig deep to find some inspiration, and I've had a few epiphanies. So one of those epiphanies is that I guess this part really isn't an epiphany, but a lot of my inspiration comes from, and this is probably going to sound silly, a lot of my inspiration comes from food, like, and eating. So I'll get really excited about a dish, and I'll be like, ooh, I can, like, grow all this stuff to make that. So, like, that's very inspiring to me. And so for me to fill my mental space with that kind of inspiration, that means watching things like The Lost Kitchen on Magnolia Network, and I love that show. It just like gives me the warm fuzzies. Ranch to Table is another one, and I used to be kind of embarrassed that I watch stuff like that, which is so silly to be embarrassed about that. But I've been watching Food Network since I was like 11. I'm very inspired by food. So with my inspiration with food, I think it's probably important for you to know, like, I come from a very foodie family. And when I say foodie family, I do not mean like rich food. I don't mean like steaks and crab and like things that are considered like high-end food. Like, I don't mean foodie in that way. I mean foodie like we would talk about the flavors, and like when we sit down and make a dish, it turns into like not analysis in like a mean way, but like analysis in like, hey, if this had a little more sugar, it would be more balanced, or, you know, this has a little bit too much salt, or like maybe next time we could do this to round out the flavor. And so, you know, kind of growing up in a house like that was really interesting. And I heard this phrase coined recently, I think maybe on TikTok, I don't remember, about being an ingredient household, and I didn't know what that was. And then it was like, oh, you didn't have like pre-prepared like easy food, it was just ingredients to make food. And that's totally the house I grew up in. Like, my mom didn't buy chips, or like the craziest cereal we had was Frosted Cheerios. Crazy. And so I didn't grow up with like quote unquote convenience food. I very much grew up with my mom or dad making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, you know, Pop-Tarts were not an occurrence in my house. It was like, here's a scrambled egg and some toast, or here's a bowl of cereal. You know, that's just kind of the house I grew up in. And ironically enough, like, my family are not like exotic foodies, which I think I would consider myself more of like I like to experiment and I like to try new things. So yeah, one of my biggest sources of inspiration does come from the food that I'm eating. There's a silly example is the Scotch bonnet peppers that I grew. Me and my boyfriend's really, really good at smoking meats. And he got really interested in how to make Jamaican jerk chicken from scratch, like authentically, like with all the spices, like even down to using a mortar and pestle to like, you know, mix everything up. And so I grew Scotch bonnet peppers, because Scotch bonnet peppers are not something that you can easily find in the store, but for gardening, you can totally find them. So it was really fun, you know, to grow those and make Jamaican jerk chicken, which if you're on Instagram, I actually posted a really, really cute reel of us making the Jamaican jerk chicken. And so yeah, if you're on Instagram, my Instagram handle is What Brooke Grows. It was really cute to make and really fun to make. So yeah, that's kind of part one of my inspiration. Also, I realized I didn't tell you which seeds I just started. I just did the Hatch Green Mild chilies. These are from Cindia Seed Company. I really like these seeds. They have a lot of really unique peppers, and then shishito peppers, which I had shishito peppers at a dinner I was at last night for one of my friend's birthdays. They were spicy. I think they were from Chile. That's where you usually find shishitos this time of year. Here, they were something fierce. I'll tell you that. And now what I'm starting are these Oro Long yellow sweet peppers. These are seeds I brought back from Amsterdam when I was there this summer. And then we're gonna do Jimmy Nardello peppers. I got a couple of these last year and I really loved them. And then the other one we're gonna do in this tray are these mini bell peppers. And I heavily encourage you to plant a garden snack. So that's what my mini bell peppers are. Like, these never make it in the house. I literally stand in the garden and I eat them because they're just so cute and tiny. So that's my one piece of advice, is plant a garden snack. So that's kind of part one of my inspiration, is the food aspect of it all. I think another part of it is I started growing flowers a couple of years ago. I grew sunflowers, which like became my favorite flower, which was wild. Flowers, I was never really into flowers, and maybe part of the reason was because like I couldn't eat them, so like to me they didn't seem useful. And then I had like one of my first like summers of gardening, which is hot and sticky and rough, and I just had these beautiful sunflowers, and they just provided such a relief to the elements that I was dealing with. And it clicked. I was like, oh, this is why people love flowers. And it was also just so fun to like cut the flowers and put them on my table. And obviously there's like pollinator benefits, but it also kind of allowed me to tap into this femininity that I didn't know. I knew it was there, but I guess it was just an aspect of it that I didn't understand. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So I remember the first zinnia I grew was a Queen Lime Red, and I even remember where the seeds came from. The seeds came from, I went with my sister to a garden center in Ohio where she lives, and I remember seeing them, and it was a Baker Creek pack, and it was discounted because it was from the year before. And so I was like, oh, well, that's fine. I can still plant those. And I was so enamored with how beautiful those inside petals were, of just the lime green with that beautiful like magenta outside. So I really love growing flowers now. And this year especially, I really want to grow perennial flowers that come back. Another big inspiration are the poppies at my old community garden. These poppies, people just let them grow and they come back every year and they're gorgeous. And so I got some poppy seeds so that I can kind of recreate some of that magic in my own garden. And to the point where, like, even at the community garden, when the community garden would get mowed, we would put flags. We would put like little landscaping flags by where the poppies were coming up so that nobody would mow over the poppies. But gosh, it was just such a beautiful spring showing. And so, you know, flowers are kind of a big inspiration for me now too. And especially figuring out flowers that work here in this part of the country, I think is really cool. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 more non-spicy. We're gonna do a nata pino. And then we're also going to do a habanada. And these are both non-spicy versions of what they sound like, a non-spicy habanero and a non-spicy jalapeno. And then we're going to do Scotch bonnets again this year because that was just really fun. And then the last kind of bit of inspiration for me that I want to talk about that I didn't realize was inspiration until I didn't have as much of it is really that sense of community. Like when I left the community garden, it was just because there was just a lot going on. It was any volunteer environment that's run by volunteers it's always gonna be political. I mean, when I tell you there used to be arguments about the type of organic hay that people used for mulch, or the fact that so-and-so's pathway was 6 inches too wide, or so-and-so took too much compost out of the massive compost pile. The stuff that people will get upset about and cause problems about is kind of astounding. To the point where it made it not fun, and to the point where, even though I loved the community and most everybody was great, the people who weren't great made it really hard to want to be there. And so that's why, really, when I got rid of my gardens for this season, not only did it affect my in-person gardening community, but it affected my ability to make content and interact with my online gardening community. And so it was kind of weirdly isolating in that way, but it was also one of those things where it made me like deeply appreciate it. And like I kind of said at the beginning of this video, it also kind of allowed me to focus on the career part of my life, which desperately needed some assistance, which I've since gotten. So community in general is very important. Part of my college degree was actually taking an anthropology course, which if you ever want to get really interested in human behavior, anthropology is an interesting place to start. Anthropology is the study of basically like human evolution, not like in the Darwinian sense specifically, but just in like why people do the things they do. Also, if you ever want to get into the psychology of why people are addicted to their phones, there's a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone that talks about brain psychology and anthropology and why social media is addicting. It's fascinating. I read that while I was working at Facebook, so awkward. Now I was gonna do my Craig's Grande Jalapeno peppers from Baker Creek. However, I've grown these the last couple of years and they're just not that spicy. So I actually have new seeds that I'm gonna try out from So Right. And we're gonna try these instead and just see if there's a difference. Going back to this idea of anthropology and community. So one of the theories behind why community and having, it takes a village, that thing. One of the theories behind that is that it increases survival. So the more people that know the more things, the increased chance everybody gets to survive, because at the root of it all, right, like that's one of the things we're all trying to do is just survive. So within the idea of the survival mindset, right, with early humans, one of the things was like, oh, well, Brooke knows which berries to pick so we don't get sick. So we're going to pull Brooke into our community and take care of her so that she can help us all survive, right? Maybe, so-and-so knows how to build a boat, right? So so-and-so is a really good asset for helping this community survive. So communities for humans really equal in our brain psychology, in our brain chemistry, survival, right? Because the knowledge of many is better than the knowledge of one. So we have this like very deeply rooted need for community. And then when it comes to like your hobbies and your shared interests, that community becomes even stronger. And truthfully, I believe that community is one of the things we lack the most in today's world. Even something as simple as my old garden neighbor, Paul, he told me one time, he just walked over and told me my Brussels sprouts were never gonna grow any taller. And I said, Paul, it's kind of rude, man. And he told me why. And guess what? The next year I was able to effectively grow Brussels sprouts. Just like he told me that he didn't think anybody could grow beefsteak tomatoes in Texas, and they watched me do it. And now he's growing beefsteak tomatoes in Texas. So it's I'm very inspired by community and connection, which I kind of always knew, but I guess I didn't know it in such a deep way that I do now that I've lacked it. Yeah, it's very interesting. So I have just sowed, after talking to y'all for the last 25 minutes, I have managed to get most of my peppers sowed, which is amazing because I have been avoiding sowing seeds for so many weeks. So thank you so much for sitting with me today and listening to my ramblings about inspiration. And if you would love to contribute, I would love to hear about what inspires you in the garden. I hope you got some seeds started with me today. And thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening. We'll see you next time.